Everyone thought the millionaire was fighting to save his daughters' lives until the nanny uncovered the truth no doctor ever saw coming. Alexander Sterling had always believed that money could solve any problem. As a self-made millionaire, he had built his empire from scratch, starting with nothing but ambition and determination. Over the years, his wealth grew, and with it came a life of comfort, luxury, and stability. But for Alexander, all the riches in the world were never enough to fill the one place in his heart that truly mattered: his twin daughters. Emma and Lily, they were his pride, his joy, and his reason for working tirelessly every day. From the moment they were born, he had devoted himself entirely to them, ensuring they never wanted for anything. Their laughter filled the house, their curiosity sparked endless games, and their love made him feel complete in a way that business deals and investments never could. The Sterling family's life seemed perfect from the outside. They lived in a grand mansion with sprawling gardens, filled with sunlight and the gentle sounds of the girls' giggles echoing through the halls. Alexander had made sure to surround them with everything a child could dream of: top schools, private tutors, beautiful toys, and countless experiences that most children could only imagine. He cherished every bedtime story, every school performance, and every moment when they held his hand, looking up at him with trust and admiration. Life felt secure, predictable, and full of happiness. Then one morning, everything changed. Alexander woke to find Emma unusually pale and quiet at breakfast. She complained of feeling weak and dizzy, something that was so unlike her energetic self. At first, he thought it might just be a passing sickness, perhaps a cold or the flu. But the worry in his chest grew when Lily also began showing similar symptoms. What started as small complaints of fatigue and headaches soon escalated into frequent bouts of unexplained fevers and persistent weakness. Alexander felt a growing sense of dread, a heavy knot forming in his stomach. He called their pediatrician immediately, then another specialist, and another. Trying to find answers, the initial tests showed nothing definitive. Yet the girl's condition continued to worsen. Alexander felt a mixture of fear and frustration he had never experienced before. No amount of money seemed sufficient to fix what was happening. He consulted the finest doctors, sending samples to international laboratories, arranging consultations with world-renowned specialists, and even reaching out to research hospitals for rare treatments. Every hour that passed without improvement made his heart pound harder. Watching Emma and Lily struggle to eat, to play, to sleep without pain, left him sleepless at night. He felt helpless in a way that money had never made him feel before. Alexander's obsession with saving them became all-consuming. He canceled meetings, postponed business decisions, and devoted every waking moment to their care. His home was filled with medical equipment, machines that beeped and whirred around the clock, and piles of test results scattered across every surface. Nurses and specialists came and went, each bringing new theories, new treatments, new hope, and often new disappointment. Despite all his efforts, nothing seemed to provide a lasting solution. Yet, in the midst of the fear and chaos, there were small moments of hope. The girls would occasionally smile, laugh at a silly joke, or hold their father's hand, giving him a fleeting sense of reassurance that maybe, somehow, they would pull through. Alexander clung to these moments, using them as fuel to keep searching for answers, refusing to let despair take hold. Every dollar he spent, every treatment he pursued, was a testament to his unwavering love for Emma and Lily. He was determined to do whatever it took, no matter the cost, no matter the obstacles, because losing them was unthinkable. Despite his determination, Alexander began to feel the strain. His body ached from long nights at their bedside. His mind was clouded with worry, and even his usual sharp business instincts seemed dulled. Yet he could not stop. The thought of his daughters suffering while he stood by helplessly was unbearable. He began to realize that no wealth, no power, no influence could protect them from this invisible enemy that threatened their young lives. Every failure brought with it a surge of guilt, and every small improvement brought a cautious sense of relief. Through all this, Alexander never lost sight of the girls themselves. He continued to read them stories, to tuck them in at night, to kiss their foreheads and whisper words of encouragement. He tried to shield them from the fear and tension swirling around them, maintaining a sense of normalcy whenever possible. For the twins, he was a constant source of love and reassurance, even as the world around them felt uncertain and frightening. His devotion was unshakable, and his determination to save them became a force that drove every decision, every action, every thought, as the days turned into weeks. And the weeks into months, Alexander's life became a blur of doctor's appointments, medical research, and sleepless nights. He spared no expense, pursuing every possible avenue to find a cure or a treatment. Experimental therapies, overseas consultations, rare medications, he left no stone unturned. His fortune, once a symbol of success and security, was now a tool in the fight for his daughters' lives. The world outside his home continued on, unaware of the silent battle being fought behind the mansion's doors. Through it all, Alexander's love for Emma and Lily remained the one constant. It was a love that demanded sacrifice, endurance, and unwavering commitment. He knew that money could not guarantee their survival, but he also knew that he could not stand idly by. Every heartbeat, every breath of the twins became the measure of his own life. And every failure became a reminder of the fragility of even the most privileged existence. In his heart, he carried the hope that somehow, against all odds, his daughters would be safe, healthy, and happy once more. The illness had shattered the illusion of a perfect life. But it had also revealed the depth of Alexander's love, the lengths to which a parent would go to protect their children, and the relentless determination that would define the next chapter of their lives. He did not yet know that the answers he sought might not lie in the doctors, offices, or the world's most expensive treatments. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty: he would stop at nothing to save Emma and Lily. Alexander's determination to save Emma and Lily only grew stronger as the days passed. Every morning he woke to check on them, watching their fragile bodies sleep, and every night he sat beside them in the dim light of their hospital room, holding their hands and praying for a sign of improvement. Time seemed to move differently in those moments. Hours could feel like days, and days could vanish in the blink of an eye. Each beep of the machines, each rise and fall of their tiny chests, reminded him of the delicate thread by which their lives hung. The doctors had tried everything they could think of, but their efforts yielded little. Alexander refused to accept failure. He believed that there was always another specialist, another treatment, another possibility somewhere in the world. He started traveling to cities far away, seeking the advice of medical experts who were renowned for treating rare conditions. From New York to London, Tokyo to Geneva, Alexander flew tirelessly, carrying his daughter's medical histories and hoping that somewhere someone could offer a solution. Luxury jets, private hospitals, and exclusive consultations became the rhythm of his life. Yet, no matter how far or how expensive the treatment, the improvement he hoped for was slow, almost imperceptible. Sometimes he wondered if he was chasing shadows, pouring money into endless tests and procedures that would never truly cure his daughters. Despite the exhaustion and frustration, Alexander refused to show despair in front of the twins. Emma and Lily, unaware of the severity of their illness, still smiled, laughed, and asked their father to play games or read stories to them. Alexander treasured these moments, as they reminded him why he was fighting so hard. He tried to create normalcy for them amid the chaos, decorating their hospital room with bright colors, bringing in their favorite toys, and reading them stories late into the night. Their laughter, though rare and fragile, became a beacon of hope that pushed him forward. Every new treatment came with a mixture of hope and fear. Alexander would watch closely as Emma and Lily received injections, medications, or experimental therapies, praying silently that this would be the one that finally worked. At times, there were small improvements. Emma could eat a bit more, Lily could sit up longer, but these fleeting victories were always followed by setbacks that left him exhausted and anxious. Each disappointment hit him harder than the last, because it wasn't just a treatment failing. It felt like the possibility of losing them inching closer. the financial cost of his obsession did not escape him. Alexander's fortune, once a source of pride and security, was rapidly dwindling as he spared no expense for their care. He liquidated investments, sold properties, and even redirected funds from his companies to pay for specialized treatments that most people could only dream of affording. Friends and business partners expressed concern, warning him that he was risking everything for a cause that might not succeed, but Alexander dismissed their worries. Money had never been more than a tool, and now it was being used for the only thing that mattered: saving his daughters. Meanwhile, Alexander's relationships outside the hospital walls began to fray. Business meetings were missed, deals fell through, and colleagues who once respected his genius started to question his judgment. He barely had time for himself, and sleep became a luxury he could not afford. But in the quiet moments, when he watched Emma and Lily lying side by side, he felt no regret. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every dollar spent was worth it if it meant they had a chance at life, as he pursued treatments around the world. Alexander began noticing subtle patterns in the twins' condition. Sometimes their symptoms would worsen in response to stress or fear, and at other times they would seem stronger when comforted or reassured. These small clues did not escape him, and he started keeping detailed notes, hoping that some connection might reveal the solution he was searching for. He discussed these observations with the doctors, but they were often dismissed as coincidence. Still, Alexander trusted his instincts and continued documenting everything meticulously, convinced that the key to their recovery might be hidden in these overlooked details. Throughout this time, he formed bonds with nurses, specialists, and caregivers who admired his dedication. Some were inspired by his relentless love, while others were concerned about the toll it was taking on him and the children. Alexander listened carefully to advice, weighed opinions, and sometimes followed recommendations reluctantly, always keeping the girls' well-being at the forefront of every decision. Yet despite all the expertise surrounding him, there was an unshakable feeling that the true cause of their illness was still undiscovered. Hidden somewhere beyond the reach of even the most brilliant minds, the twins themselves became symbols of resilience. Emma and Lily, despite their weakness and frequent discomfort, tried to maintain their spirits. They asked questions, played quietly with toys, and occasionally laughed at each other's small jokes. Alexander cherished these moments, holding them close and reminding himself that hope could live in the smallest gestures: a smile, a giggle, or a tiny victory over the illness that had stolen so much from them. He often caught himself marveling at their bravery, wondering how such tiny beings could show such courage in the face of something so frightening as weeks stretched into months. The weight of the fight began to show on Alexander. He had become gaunt, his eyes darkened by sleepless nights, and his body a reflection of the constant stress he carried. Yet his determination never wavered. Friends whispered that he was obsessed. He was pushing himself to the breaking point, but Alexander only knew one truth: there was no other choice. Time was precious, and every second mattered. If he faltered for even a moment, he could lose them forever. During this period, he also began exploring alternative therapies alongside traditional medicine. From specialized diets and meditation techniques to energy therapies and rare herbal remedies, Alexander left no possibility unconsidered. Some doctors were skeptical. Some therapies seemed bizarre, but in his mind, anything that offered a glimmer of hope was worth pursuing. He arranged for private instructors, therapists, and caretakers to travel with the family, turning their lives into a constant whirlwind of treatment schedules, monitoring, and care. Yet, amid the endless efforts and medical battles, Alexander could not ignore the emotional toll on the twins. He watched as their eyes sometimes filled with confusion, fear, and frustration. They asked questions he struggled to answer, wondered why they were always poked with needles, and sometimes cried themselves to sleep. He tried to comfort them, to explain in simple words, but deep down, he realized that the uncertainty was weighing heavily on their young minds. Each tear, each fearful glance broke his heart, and he wished he could carry their suffering for them. Despite all these challenges, Alexander's love for Emma and Lily never faltered. It became the driving force behind every decision, every journey, every sleepless night. Even in the face of setbacks, disappointment, and mounting stress, he refused to give up. The world outside continued its normal pace. Unaware of the battles being fought in quiet hospital rooms, private jets, and faraway clinics. But for Alexander, the only world that mattered was the one in which his daughters lived and breathed. And he would pursue every possible avenue to ensure that world was safe, healthy, and filled with hope once more. He knew that the fight was far from over. The illness had taken its toll, the treatments had not yet delivered the cure, and the uncertainty loomed large. But Alexander had learned one crucial lesson: perseverance. Love and unwavering dedication were just as important as medicine in the fight for life. No matter how many obstacles lay ahead, he vowed to continue, to travel, to experiment, and to sacrifice anything necessary. For Emma and Lily, he would cross oceans, challenge experts, and exhaust every resource. Their lives were the most precious treasure he had. He would not rest until they were safe, healthy, and smiling once again. Clara had been with the Sterling family for nearly a decade. Watching Alexander's life transform from a driven businessman into a devoted father of twin daughters, she had cared for Emma and Lily since their infancy, witnessing every milestone, every tear, every laugh. To her, they were more than her charges. They were like family. Clara had seen Alexander in all his moods: confident, joyful, stressed, even angry. But nothing had prepared her for the storm that entered their lives when the twins fell gravely ill. From the very beginning of their illness, Clara sensed the tension that clung to the Sterling household. The mansion, once filled with carefree laughter and light, had transformed into a place of hushed voices, constant monitoring, and the quiet hum of medical equipment. Nurses and specialists came and went daily, doctors argued over charts and lab results. Alexander's focus never wavered from the girls. Clara did everything she could to support him, managing the twins' schedules, ministering medications as instructed, and keeping them calm during procedures. Yet, behind her professional composure, a seed of unease had begun to grow. Clara noticed little inconsistencies that even the most brilliant doctors seemed to miss. Sometimes Emma or Lily would appear ill in Alexander's absence, but perk up when he returned. Other times, their symptoms seemed to intensify in moments of stress or fear, but diminish when comforted or distracted. Clara had a keen eye for human behavior. Years of childcare had honed her instincts, and she began documenting every detail quietly, noting patterns that others dismissed. She did not want to alarm Alexander or undermine the doctors, but she felt that something about the twins' illness did not add up every day. Clara watched Alexander pour himself into his daughter's care with a devotion that was both inspiring and heartbreaking. He rarely slept, ate, or thought about anything outside their condition. He carried the weight of their illness like a shield, refusing to let despair show to the twins. Clara admired his love, but she also saw the toll it was taking. His hands shook from exhaustion, his eyes darkened with sleepless nights, and the edges of his patience frayed. Yet he never wavered in his determination, never hesitated to spend whatever it took to try another treatment, to consult another specialist, to buy hope in whatever form it appeared as weeks passed. Clara began to spend more time observing the twins closely, not just physically but emotionally. She noticed subtle cues in their behavior, the way Emma would tense when new nurses approached, the way Lily would hide her face during certain procedures, or how both girls responded positively to music, stories, and gentle reassurance. She quietly tested theories in her own small way, introducing games, comfort techniques, and moments of calm, and observed remarkable responses. For a child whose health seemed so fragile, their resilience amazed her. It was as if their bodies and minds were telling a story that the medical charts could not capture. Clara's attention to detail and her growing suspicions began to form a pattern in her mind. The twins' symptoms seemed to be linked more to emotional states than physical causes. When she noticed their eyes fill with fear or anxiety, certain ailments worsened. When they laughed or felt safe, the symptoms receded. Clara started to wonder if the relentless focus on medical intervention might be contributing to the problem rather than solving it. She did not voice these thoughts aloud, knowing how consumed Alexander was by the fear of losing them. Still, She could not ignore what her instincts were telling her. The dynamic between Clara and Alexander changed subtly during this period. He trusted her implicitly, often consulting her for minor decisions and acknowledging her insight when it came to the girl's moods or needs. But she could see the blind spots in his focus. He was so determined to save them through every possible treatment that he might not recognize the role of stress, anxiety, or emotional strain in their condition. Clara respected his expertise in business and his absolute devotion as a father. But she also felt a responsibility to protect the twins in ways he could not yet see. During quiet nights when the mansion was still, Clara would sit by the twins' bedside, watching their chests rise and fall in the dim glow of the monitoring machines. She would hum soft tunes, stroke their hair, and whisper words meant to soothe them. In these moments, she felt a closeness to Emma and Lily that went beyond her professional role. She began to understand them in ways that even Alexander, consumed by fear and urgency, might not fully grasp. She saw patterns of comfort, triggers of stress, and subtle behaviors that hinted at something deeper than illness. Clara also began keeping a private journal, recording everything she observed. She noted the timing of symptoms, reactions to specific medications, emotional responses, and behavioral cues. Slowly, a theory started to form. What if the twins' illness was not purely physical? What if, in their fragile emotional state, their bodies were manifesting stress and anxiety in ways that mimicked a serious medical condition? It was a dangerous thought, one that could upset the delicate balance of the household if revealed too soon. But she could not ignore the possibility. Her growing suspicions were strengthened by interactions with the specialists and nurses. Some dismissed her insights, seeing them as the subjective observations of a caregiver, while others occasionally hinted that the mind could play a powerful role in a child's health. Clara weighed each comment carefully, always considering the twins' best interests. But she knew that even a small revelation could change everything. The question was not whether to act, but when and how. Clara's empathy for the twins deepened as she watched them navigate their days. Emma and Lily were intelligent, perceptive children who sensed the tension and fear around them. They asked questions about why they were sick, why their father seemed so worried, and sometimes, in moments of vulnerability, they cried quietly for no apparent reason. Clara comforted them gently, sometimes using words Alexander would never have thought to say, other times simply holding their hands and offering silent reassurance. She realized that her role was not just to care for their physical needs, but to guide them through the emotional labyrinth that had become their lives. The turning point came one afternoon when Clara noticed a sudden, dramatic change in their symptoms. Emma, who had been pale and weak all morning, brightened significantly after a simple drawing session. Lily, previously listless, laughed and played when Clara told a story she loved. The contrast was stark and undeniable. Clara's heart raced as she connected these moments to her observations over the past weeks. She began to feel that the truth about the twins' condition was closer than ever, a truth that could redefine everything Alexander believed about their illness. Clara faced a dilemma. Revealing her suspicions to Alexander could change the course of their treatment and his emotional state. If she was wrong, it could shatter his hope. If she was right, it could save the twins from unnecessary procedures and stress. Every decision weighed heavily on her conscience. She knew that she had to be careful, to gather enough evidence, and to prepare for the moment when she could gently and convincingly guide Alexander toward the truth. Despite the uncertainty, Clara remained steadfast in her duties. She continued to care for Emma and Lily with unwavering love and attention, balancing the complex dynamics of their medical needs and emotional well-being. She observed, recorded, and reflected, slowly building a picture of the hidden factors affecting their health. And through it all, she remained a quiet, stabilizing presence in the Sterling household, offering a sense of calm and continuity that neither Alexander nor the twins could do without. Through her meticulous care, Clara began to understand a truth that had eluded everyone else. Sometimes, the most powerful forces in a child's life were not machines, medications, or money, but love, attention, and the careful reading of emotions. She realized that the answers Alexander sought might not be found in a doctor's office or an expensive treatment, but in the subtle, unseen interactions that shaped the twins' daily experiences. This understanding set the stage for the revelation that would soon change everything for the Sterling family. Clara had been observing Emma and Lily for weeks, noting every nuance, every subtle reaction, and every fluctuation in their condition. She had grown increasingly convinced that something fundamental about their illness had been overlooked. The twins' symptoms did not always align with the doctor's reports, and certain patterns seemed impossible to ignore. She noticed that their condition often worsened after stressful events, medical procedures, or tense discussions in the household. Conversely, when they were calm, engaged in play, or simply comforted, their symptoms eased significantly. Slowly, a hypothesis formed in her mind, a dangerous but compelling thought that the twins' illness might not be purely physical at first. Clara hesitated. How could she challenge the judgment of world-renowned doctors, the very people Alexander trusted implicitly? How could she even suggest that the expensive treatments, the constant hospital visits, the injections and medications might not be what the twins truly needed? And most importantly, how could she tell Alexander without shattering his carefully held hope? Yet the more she observed, the more the truth seemed undeniable. She could no longer ignore the possibility that Emma and Lily's bodies were responding to stress and fear rather than a rare disease. One evening, after a particularly tense day filled with consultations and tests, Clara decided to conduct a careful experiment. She arranged a quiet, relaxed environment for the twins, one without doctors, treatments, or constant monitoring. She brought out their favorite books, soft blankets, and a small tray of snacks they loved. She spoke to them gently, encouraging laughter and comfort, and watched closely. Within minutes, she noticed something extraordinary. The twins' pallor improved, their energy returned, and their smiles reappeared. They played together, giggled at small jokes, and even asked for stories from Clara, as if they were children unaffected by illness. Clara's heart raced. This was the confirmation she needed. The twins' physical decline had a direct connection to their emotional state. Their bodies were manifesting stress, anxiety, and fear as symptoms that had been misinterpreted as a serious illness. The realization hit her with the weight of inevitability. The treatments Alexander had spent a fortune on, the countless hours of worry and sleepless nights, the relentless medical interventions, all of it may have been unnecessary, and, in some ways, it might have been making things worse. She spent the next several days carefully documenting everything. She noted how symptoms fluctuated with emotional stress, how certain therapies and interactions worsened or improved their condition, how moments of genuine comfort and play brought noticeable relief. Clara cross-referenced these observations with medical records and notes from doctors, piecing together a pattern that was impossible to ignore. She realized that while the medical world had focused exclusively on physical causes, the psychological and emotional factors had been entirely overlooked. Clara also began considering how best to approach Alexander. He was exhausted, emotionally vulnerable, and utterly consumed by fear for his daughters. Any revelation had the potential to overwhelm him completely. Yet she knew that waiting too long could prolong unnecessary treatments and stress for the twins. She needed a strategy and approach that would allow him to see the truth without feeling blamed or foolish. It would have to be gentle, evidence-based, and persuasive, showing him that there was hope, but in a way that required a shift in perspective rather than an admission of past. The opportunity came one morning when Alexander returned from a long overseas trip. He was weary, tense, and visibly anxious, eager to check on the twins. Clara greeted him with calm composure and suggested a controlled demonstration. She created a serene environment in the twins' playroom, free from medical devices and the hum of machines. She invited Alexander to watch without interfering. As the twins laughed, played, and interacted with Clara in an atmosphere of warmth and reassurance, Alexander's eyes widened. He had never seen them so relaxed and energetic. Clara spoke softly but firmly, explaining her observations. She showed him her detailed notes, highlighting patterns in the twins' symptoms, and explained the possibility that their condition was largely psychosomatic, manifesting physical symptoms due to stress, anxiety, or emotional tension. Alexander was stunned. He felt a mix of disbelief, relief, and anger. He had invested a fortune, traveled the world, and spent countless sleepless nights believing that they were battling a rare, incurable disease. Now, he was being asked to consider that much of it may have been unnecessary, and that the key to healing lay not in medicine, but in emotional care. Alexander's mind raced. He recalled instances that suddenly made sense, how the girls sometimes seemed worse during tests, how they improved after moments of comfort, how fear and anxiety seemed to trigger symptoms. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, and a heavy weight of realization settled on his shoulders. He felt relief that there was hope, but also guilt and frustration for not noticing sooner. Clara remained patient, guiding him through the evidence without judgment, emphasizing that their lives were not at risk as long as he understood the truth and shifted focus. Over the next days, Alexander gradually embraced Clara's insight. He began prioritizing emotional support, creating calm routines, and spending quality, stress-free time with the twins. Medical treatments were scaled back carefully, monitored under professional guidance, while play, storytelling, and comfort became central to their care. The atmosphere in the Sterling household slowly transformed. The tension eased. The girls' smiles returned more frequently, and Alexander began to feel hope in a way he hadn't experienced in months. Clara's careful planning and dedication had not only revealed the truth, but also created a path forward. She continued to monitor the twins, observing subtle cues and responding promptly, ensuring that emotional triggers were addressed before they escalated. Alexander, though initially overwhelmed by the revelation, learned to trust her judgment completely. He realized that love, patience, and understanding could be just as powerful as any medical intervention. Through this experience, the Sterling family began to heal in ways money had never been able to achieve. Alexander learned humility, recognizing that even wealth and influence had limits, and that sometimes the most important truths were hidden in simple human interactions. The twins, freed from unnecessary stress and medical procedures, flourished, showing energy, laughter, and vitality that had been absent for so long. Clara had not only uncovered the unseen truth, but had also become the guide that led the family toward recovery. Her observations, compassion, and courage had changed the course of their lives, demonstrating the profound impact that careful attention, empathy, and understanding could have in the face of fear and uncertainty. Alexander's fortune, though immense, had proven secondary to the priceless value of insight, love, and the quiet presence of someone who truly understood his daughters. In the end, the revelation was a turning point not just for the twins' health, but for the entire family. The focus shifted from desperate medical intervention to emotional nurturing and genuine care. Alexander learned that sometimes the answers lie not in what money can buy, but in the careful observation, patience, and love that only a devoted caregiver like Clara could provide. The unseen truth, once discovered, became the foundation of a new beginning for the Sterling family, one built on understanding, hope, and a deeper connection than money or medicine could ever offer. After Clara revealed the unseen truth about Emma and Lily's illness, Alexander felt as though the world had shifted beneath his feet. For months, he had been trapped in a whirlwind of fear, endless medical appointments, and exhausting travel, believing that the only way to save his daughters was through expensive treatments and constant monitoring. Now confronted with the reality that their condition was largely psychosomatic, he experienced a rush of conflicting emotions: relief, guilt, disbelief, and a deep, almost overwhelming sense of responsibility. He had to change not only how he cared for his daughters, but also how he thought about their world, their needs, and the meaning of true healing. At first, Alexander struggled to adjust. He had spent months, perhaps years, consumed by the belief that money and expertise were the keys to their survival. Shifting to an approach that focused on emotional nurturing and trust required humility, patience, and courage. Yet, as he watched the twins begin to respond to the calm, supportive environment Clara had created, he began to feel hope for the first time in a long while. Their pale faces regained color, their energy returned in small but meaningful increments, and their laughter, previously rare, became more frequent. Alexander realized that he had been chasing an illusion, and that true healing was now within reach, not through the world's most expensive treatments, but through care, understanding, and love. Clara remained by his side throughout this transition, guiding him gently and offering insight with patience. She showed him how to read subtle emotional cues, how to respond to fear before it escalated, and how to create an environment in which the twins could feel safe and supported. Alexander learned quickly, but it was not easy. Old habits, ingrained fears, and the weight of guilt over the money and time he had spent threatened to overwhelm him at moments. Clara reassured him, emphasizing that the past could not be undone, but that the future was now brighter than it had been in months. Alexander began to understand that being a parent was as much about emotional presence as it was about providing resources. The change in approach brought immediate results. Simple axe-reading bedtime stories without rushing, encouraging the girls to play freely, allowing them to express their fears and frustrations, produced dramatic improvements. Emma and Lily began to sleep more soundly. Their appetite returned, and their mood stabilized. Even small victories felt monumental to Alexander, as they represented proof that love, attention, and patience could indeed heal in ways that no medicine had been able to. He felt a renewed sense of connection with his daughters, experiencing moments of joy that had been nearly lost in the months of constant worry. Alexander also took time to reflect on the lessons this ordeal had taught him. He recognized that his obsession with treatments and outcomes, though born of love, had blinded him to the most fundamental truth. The well-being of his daughters depended not only on physical interventions, but on emotional stability. He began to rebuild his life around this principle, balancing his professional responsibilities with the emotional needs of the twins, and seeking support from Clara and trusted caregivers, rather than attempting to control every aspect of their environment. The family's daily routine transformed. Mornings were no longer dominated by blood tests and injections. Instead, they began with quiet moments of play, gentle conversation, and laughter. Alexander spent more time reading to Emma and Lily, playing games with them, and simply being present. Afternoons included structured but stress-free activities that nurtured creativity and confidence, and evenings were filled with calm rituals designed to reinforce a sense of security. Clara's guidance remained central, but Alexander's active participation created a sense of unity and stability that the girls could rely on. Slowly, the mansion, once a place of tension and sterile medical routines, began to feel like a home again. The air, once heavy with worry, grew lighter with laughter and joy. Alexander began to reconnect with the simple pleasures of parenthood that he had almost forgotten, hearing the twins giggle, watching them play in the garden, and witnessing the small milestones that previously would have been overshadowed by fear. Each day brought evidence of progress, and each small triumph reinforced his belief that the twins' lives could now be full and vibrant without the constant shadow of illness. Alexander also made efforts to reconcile with the financial and emotional costs of the past months. He realized that while he had spent a fortune, no amount of money could replace the lessons he had learned about patience, empathy, and the power of presence. The twins' recovery reminded him that wealth, while useful, was never a substitute for genuine care. He began to use his resources more wisely, investing in tools and experiences that enriched their lives, emotionally and intellectually, rather than obsessively pursuing medical interventions. This new perspective allowed him to breathe again, to release the tension that had dominated him, and to find joy in the everyday moments he had once taken for granted. The twins flourished under this renewed approach. Emma's curiosity returned. Lily's energy was boundless, and both girls developed a confidence that had been missing during the long months of illness. Their personalities, once subdued by fear and stress, now shone brightly. Alexander found himself laughing more than he had in years, rejoicing in the small victories and feeling a profound gratitude for Clara's insight and dedication. He realized that her ability to see what others could not had saved not only his daughters, but also the family from falling into despair. Through this process, Alexander also grew as a person. He learned humility, the value of careful observation, and the importance of trusting those who had insight beyond his own perspective. His relationship with Clara deepened, built on mutual respect and shared love for the twins. He became more attuned to the emotional needs of his children and more willing to seek help when necessary, understanding that parenting was a shared responsibility and that even the wealthiest man could not succeed alone. As months passed, the family's life settled into a rhythm of balance, health, and joy. Alexander continued to monitor the twins' progress, but now with a sense of calm rather than desperation. He had learned to recognize the subtle signs of stress, to respond with care, and to prioritize emotional well-being alongside physical health. The mansion, once a place of anxiety and relentless treatment, became a sanctuary where laughter, learning, and love flourished. Finally, Alexander reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. The ordeal had tested him in ways he could never have anticipated, challenging his beliefs, exhausting his resources, and forcing him to confront his deepest fears. But it had also revealed the profound power of love, patience, and observation. He realized that the greatest gift he could give his daughters was not wealth, medical intervention, or control, but presence, understanding, and unwavering support. The family had endured fear, uncertainty, and challenges that could have torn them apart, yet they emerged stronger, closer, and more connected than ever before. Emma and Lily, now thriving, remained at the center of Alexander's world, but he approached their lives with a new wisdom. He understood that true protection came not from spending fortunes or chasing every possible cure, from creating a nurturing environment where children felt safe, loved, and understood. The twins' recovery became a testament to the invisible power of care, the quiet strength of those who truly see, and the transformative impact of insight, compassion, and dedication. In the end, the Sterling family found healing not through money, treatments, or the relentless pursuit of answers, but through love, understanding, and the patient guidance of someone who had noticed what no one else could. Alexander's fortune, though vast, paled in comparison to the lessons he had learned and the joy he now felt in the simple, irreplaceable moments with Emma and Lily. They had survived not only because of resources, but because of insight, empathy, and the unwavering devotion of both a father and a caregiver who refused to give up. The mansion was filled, once again, with laughter, the sound of children running freely, and the quiet contentment of a family that had faced darkness and emerged into light. Alexander watched Emma and Lily play, smiling genuinely for the first time in months, grateful beyond words for the love that had guided them through their ordeal. Clara stood nearby, a quiet guardian whose observations had changed the course of their lives. Together they had turned a story of fear, illness, and uncertainty into one of resilience, hope, and the enduring power of love. The Sterling family had learned a lesson that wealth could never teach, that true healing comes from understanding, empathy, and emotional presence. Alexander knew that, moving forward, this understanding would guide every decision, every interaction, and every moment with his daughters. He had been given a second chance, not just to protect them, but to truly be present in their lives. And in that presence, he found a happiness, peace, and connection that no fortune could ever buy.